Well, good morning and welcome. Brand new work week. It's already the 9th day in the month of February 2015, rolling right along as we plow through the dark, cold days of winter. Welcome to the Dan Fagan Radio Show. We're glad you found this. We're glad you're with us. We're streaming live, danfagan.us. Of course, we're broadcasting on 95.1 FM, KOAN, 1080 AM, KOAN. If you're listening to AM, I switched between the two this morning driving in, the 1080 AM and the 95.1 FM, and I'm telling you, it's a world of difference. The 95.1 FM is so much stronger. So I would recommend you switch over to FM if you could. If you're out in the valley, we're broadcasting KVNT, which is 95.2 FM. And then we're also on AM out there, 1020. And streaming Dan Fagan's show or danfagan.us. Danfagan.us. On this very cold Monday morning. I keep hearing the temperatures are going to get into more comfortable range. Actually, I think they said later in the week, but it's still, well, it's 9. That's not bad. 9's, we've been close to 0 most last week at this time. So in Anchorage it's 9. Down in Palmer it's still 3. In Wasilla 7 degrees. Eagle River 7 also. And Girdwood 12 with snow. So they must be excited about that at Girdwood with the snow showers coming down. Now it says tomorrow we're going to get up to 28. And then 32 on Wednesday, 36 on Thursday, 36 on Friday, and then Valentine's Day, 39. So that's pretty comfortable. This time of year, 39 feels like summer. Such a big difference. So we got that to look forward to. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk to Ron Holstrom, who is a big proponent of the Alaska Film Program. Ron was in the movie, that Nicolas Cage movie. He was the attorney for the guy who was the serial killer, Robert Hansen. And then he had a pretty good part. I mean, he's a local guy. He's a local theater guy. And he's a big fan of the film subsidy program. Of course, Bill Stoll, state representative, has come out and said, no, I don't think so. No more. We're not going to spend money on that. So we'll see what happens with that. Probably, and I think even Governor Walker has indicated that he's not real excited about the film program. The problem is, it's not a tax incentive program. It is a subsidy program. Or when movie companies come and make movies or whatever they make, it's really film and production. If you make a commercial, if you make a car commercial in Alaska, whatever it is, you get the subsidy. And the state literally writes a check to the company doing the filming. But the problem is these companies don't pay taxes here. So literally we are paying them out of state funds to come work here, which is very different than what we do with the oil industry. The oil industry comes here and as you know, pays 90% of all of our taxes. And what we say to them is, if you do more work, if you do more of this type of work or that type of work, we will lower your taxes. Very different than say, we're just going to give you a check, flat out check. So that's a big difference between what's happening in the film subsidy and the oil industry. It is astonishing to me that those who are so in favor of the film subsidy program, because they say it gives us a competitive edge for the investment dollars coming out of Hollywood, will take the complete opposite position when it comes to the oil industry. They can't see being competitive for oil industry investment dollars 2 feet in front of their face. But yet when it comes to leftist Hollywood, well, certainly we need to become more competitive for investment dollars. And it's just amazing that they can't see that. I think they can. I think they don't like the oil industry because they're global warming, climate change cult members. And they love leftist Hollywood. And another thing about people say, well, they go to work, they go to work. Yeah, you get. I know people who are extras who get paid, and it's producing some revenue for some citizens. But they're probably, I know, like Sprocket Heads, Steve Recheknik, who's one of the best cinematographers, frankly, in the country. He works up here. He benefits from it. There, maybe a dozen people who make real money when these films are made in Alaska. I'm talking about real money, and you got the carpenters to build the set and all that. But we're not talking about any significant kind of job creation. I mean, nothing to the point where it's going to establish you to be able to pay your bills and buy a house and support your family. It's kind of a fun little hobby thing. And the other thing is, well, it's kind of cool that Alaska gets highlighted and people want to come to Alaska. Yeah, but look at the last one. It was about a serial killer in the shady, dark days of the 1970s. Did that really want to make anybody come up here? I don't think so. And this is the whale movie. I suppose that may have caused somebody to say, "Hey, let's go to Alaska and watch the whales." But I don't think it does much for tourism. If you go anywhere in the country, or if you watch national cable channels, even in your home here in Anchorage or the Valley, you'll see a ton of Alaska commercials. Alaska gets marketed very well, and it's mainly because of the cruise ship industry. The cruise ship industry promotes its business up here. Uh, and KVNT. All right, 6:16 in the morning. Dan Fagan Show. Good morning to you. So glad you found us and you're a part of the broadcast. We're here every Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Only local morning talk show broadcasting on 4 different signals: 95.1 FM, 1080 AM. We also have 2 signals we're broadcasting on outside of Wasilla: 95.2 FM, 1020 AM. Our call letters are KOAN, that's in Anchorage, and in the Valley, KVNT. Exciting news today. We've got a new talk show debuting here on KOAN. Joe Miller, former Senate candidate, will be debuting his broadcast, his radio show right here today, 2 o'clock, 2 to 4. So the lineup is I'm here from 6 to 9. Eddie Burke is on from 9 to 11. And then Mike Schmidt is on. I don't know if it's Mike or what. Schnitt. Some dude named Schnitt is on from 11 until, I believe, 2. And then Laura Ingraham, 2 to 4. And then Joe Miller, 4 to 6. And then our good friend, Glenn Legal Eagle Beagle, on from 4 to 6. That's 4 local talk shows on one station. That's amazing. I don't know, you go to New York and Chicago and the really big markets, you'll see radio stations with all local, but for us to have 4 of the 6 daytime talk shows to be local, that's a pretty big deal. So we're excited about that. For so many years, this station has not had the best signal. Well, we fixed that. 95.1 FM is now very powerful, and it's good. It's good to see. It's good to see that we're heading in the right direction here. Mike Robbins, who's the owner of the station, he is the guy who's putting all this together. I don't work for him personally. I own my own show, as do Glenn and Joe Miller. I think Eddie is an employee, but so it's a good situation. It's a good setup, and we're excited. We're excited about what the future holds, and we're glad you found us. Tell your friends, help a brother out. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors that the KON and KVNT got it. Oh, Tom Anderson! Don't forget Tom Anderson. He's on on KVNT out in the Valley from 4 to 6. Glenn's show will not be on KVNT. I don't know about Miller. I don't know if Miller is going to be on. I don't think he is. I think this is the only show that's on both signals. With Tom Miller, Tom Anderson. That's another good local show that you can catch out on KVNT from 4 to 6 in the Valley, Monday through Friday. So check that out. I don't like trying to debate people when I don't feel as though I know an issue very well. I really try to educate myself as much as I can on the issues that are facing us today, especially local issues. And I have the opportunity, fortunately, because I've been in talk radio a long time and I was a journalist before that on Channel 2. People know me, so I can call just about anybody and talk to them about, what's the deal with this, or how's this going, and explain this to me. And I do that. I do that a lot, especially if there's an issue locally that I don't understand and I don't get. And I try to, form my opinions, talking to people I respect. Not necessarily just people I agree with. I have some leftist friends who I'll say, could you explain to me where you guys are coming from on this? And most of the time it doesn't make any sense to me, but I at least listen to them. But on this climate change deal, I know there's a professor up at UAF I've talked to, and there's another guy who used to teach out in the Valley who I respected. I know Alex Gilmark is really sharp on this issue. Alex is a columnist. but I've never really gotten a grasp on the issue because the problem is the people who are wanting to take away our freedom because they believe the climate's changing to the degree that we're all going to drown. They present very different facts than those who do not favor the climate change, global warming belief system. So it's hard for me to decipher who's telling the truth and who's not. And I know that typically those who believe we're all going to drown because of climate change, global warming, they're usually wrong about everything. That crowd, in the whatever they seem to stand for, it always is typically a minimization of freedom and the growth of the state. So if you've got a track record of anti-freedom, growth of state, and then you jump in on the global warming, climate change belief system, and you believe this pattern, I'm denying the earth is round and we're just stupid. We're the ones that's stupid. Really. You can't see the system, how it's rigged and how it's set up. And this is not the first time these scientists, global warming cult members, or climate change members have fudged facts. There's a fixes in because the incentive is there financially for them to do so. And some people have really dedicated their life to this, by the way. I mean, it's like their religion. They would never do anything to hurt Mother Earth now because this has become their belief system that trumps everything else. That's why they hate the oil industry. That's why they hate the pharmaceutical industry. Any kind of industry that has to manufacture anything. Because that puts more CO2s in the air. That's why they're willing to murder innocent children. Because we had a guy on, I forget, it was a guy down on the peninsula, Alan Boras. You favor the one-child policy in China? Well, it seems to be working, huh? You want to kill a little baby because of your cult? Your global warming climate change cult? You want to kill a little child? It's sick. But it won't prevail. They never do. These crazy things, they never prevail. The American people are already beginning to reject it. 569-1080. 569-1080. Dan Fagan Show, 629.
that lady flies all the way from Russia to the United States to go to her son's trial, one of the Boston bomber guys that's on trial. She gets up in court and go, "Oh, my son is innocent. He's innocent." And you don't ever see anybody do that in court these days.
Yeah.
And the thing is they're hiding amongst the nonviolent Muslims. These ISIS people are, Dan. So what we have to do is, there's not been one war fought where there's been innocent casualties. There's another word for it. But, it's not, war is not fair. President Obama does not want to declare war on Islam because he thinks that there's only a small fraction of them that use their religion to wrap around their sick beliefs. And it's the same with all religions. If a lady on the East Coast in the 15th century has a lot of land, she lives by herself with a cat, well, she's a bone to be picked. And out of the name of religion, they gathered them up, and it's the Salem witch hunt, So Obama did have a small point. He did have a point, but the thing is we're dealing with what's going on right now. We need to do something right now instead of going back thousands of years.
Well, I don't know how extensive that Salem witch hunt thing was. Is that it? That was the common denominator? A cat? You had a cat? You're a witch?
Or in a church, these girls would start rolling around on the floor, and then they'd point out to this person that's making them do it, so the whole town would take that person out and hang them. There was all kinds of things. But now I want to tell you the remedy.
Okay.
How you deal with ISIS.
All right.
You turn some of these Muslim cities into glass.
You mean you just bomb them to oblivion?
Well, Harry Truman did it, and it stopped the war, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really tough to say and easy for me to say sitting here in Warm House, not of the age of having to go to war. If there was a war, I'm 55.
Yeah.
And they would never send me to war. It's real easy for me to say, but, I've read my history, Dan. And the thing is you've got to meet violence with violence. You've got to fight fire with fire sometimes.
Well, I can empathize with the president in that, yes, I don't think the American people have the stomach right now for more troops on the ground. They don't want to go into a war. They don't want this country to perpetually be in war year after year after year because, a lot of this religion of Islam is a religion that is built on hate. It literally, to be a member, you must hate the Jews, the Christians, and the infidels. So it's always going to be a violent, nasty, mean religion. And, unless we decide, all right, we're going to go kill them all. And I just don't think the American people have the stomach for that. But what I do think he should do, Joe, is like Ronald Reagan said to Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He needs to start speaking directly to the globe and to the Muslim community and say, look, you're evil. Stop killing people. Stop beheading people.
That won't stop them. That won't stop them, Dan. The thing is we've got to learn from history. People are people. We haven't changed that much over the years, and sometimes we need to purge out a huge population because the world's overpopulated by over 4 billion.
So you want the Muslims to kill themselves?
No, what we're going to have to do is have democracy take over, and people like the United States use the nuclear bombs that we've built to do so. I mean, why do we have all these nuclear bombs stockpiled?
For deterrence.
Yeah, well, we've got to do something because I am sick of looking on the TV and on the internet at people getting burned alive and people getting beheaded, and it just is so sick. Got to fight fire with fire.
Joe, I appreciate your phone call.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Have a good Monday afternoon. 569-1080. I think your words do matter. When Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, I believe that set into motion everything that was needed to win the Cold War. When George Bush, in his State of the Union, during his first term, right after 9/11, called out the axis of evil, I believe that sends a message. If people think you're serious, look, the Iran hostages, they were released the very day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated. Why? They knew Jimmy Carter was weak. They knew Reagan was strong. They didn't want to mess with Reagan. And Reagan would have done what Joe is calling for. He would have flattened that country. So it does matter, your words. This president will not even acknowledge that these terrorists are Muslim. He won't even acknowledge it. Are you kidding me? This is our leader? You cannot tell me that does not have a major impact on the hearts of these terrorists. That the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, the commander in chief of the greatest armed forces in the history of man, won't even call them out. Yes, that emboldens them. Of course it does. Of course it does. Words matter. And they matter even more when you're a leader and you have tremendous power that has been delegated to you. Look, when Mr. Obama came to the people of this country and said, I will radically transform this country and I will bring hope and change. And like a bunch of clown towns, we fell for it. Well, he's done what he said. He has radically transformed this country to the place where we were the most feared nation on the planet. And when we said something, we were going to do it. You better get your act together. To a nation that people will just laugh at now, where he draws a red line and then draws another one, then another one, then another one. Words matter. And the more power you have, the more they matter. Five 569-1080. That's the number. 569-1080. We're streaming danfagan.us. Go to the website, click on the link, watch the show, listen to the show. You can also send me an email if you'd like, which I would love to get from you. danfaganshow@icloud.com. danfaganshow@icloud.com. Joe Miller, his debut today at 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock on KOAN. He's on from 2 to 4. Glenn Legal Eagle Beagle follows him 4 to 6. And then Eddie Burke's on at 9 to 11. That's 4 local talk shows all in one day here on KOAN. Only talk show in town that I'm aware of. Only talk station in town that I'm aware of that has 4 local shows. 6:58, you're listening to the Dan Fagan Radio Show. stories to play God. In a short distance from their telling fantastic stories and may actually believing them. There's a short distance between their telling fantastic stories and maybe actually believing them. That's kind of let us take on what happened with Brian Williams, the New Yorker. He's used to awing people with stories, and if he embellishes them, sometimes he begins to believe them himself. 7:14. Ron, the theater guy, Ron Holstrom's coming up next. We're going to talk about the film subsidy program. You're listening to the Dan Fagan Radio Show. Well, good morning. Welcome back. Listen to the Monday edition of the Dan Fagan Radio Show on this, the 9th day of February, 2015. Let's welcome to the broadcast Ron Holstrom, who is known by a lot of folks in Anchorage as the theater guy. He's very active in the movie industry here in Alaska, and he played quite well. He played the defense attorney in the movie about serial killer Ron Hansen. It was fun. I don't think I've talked to you since I've seen that movie. I was very impressed.
Oh, thanks, Dan. Yeah, well, we should point out that I'm kind of a lousy attorney. My client got 461 years.
Well, if he hadn't lost his cool there in the interview room, it was so surreal though, watching you, who I know, and then Robert Forget, who I know, playing in such a big time movie like that. That was so exciting to watch.
Oh, we had a ball. Wasn't Robert great?
He was. Yeah. You were great too, though. I thought you were very believable.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It was a gas. We had a great time with those guys.
So they're talking about ending the film program. Bill Stoltz has a bill. What will Bill Stoltz's bill do, as you understand it?
Well, as you know, Dan, this has been like a kind of a long process ever since the film program was first instated. There's been like this rather concentrated effort to water it down and then just kill it all together. So it's just the harbinger of finally telling the people outside the producers that we're closed.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I should disclose this for conflict of interest sake. My sister, whose kids are now both in college, so she's an empty nester, the movie industry in New Orleans is so strong now that she has become a stand-in for several of these movies, and it's like something she does for a living now.
That's incredible, and that pays good bucks too. That's a SAG-AFTRA contract.
Well, I noticed when I go to New Orleans now, and you drive around downtown, you're going to see a movie being shot
Hollywood.
Yeah.
So but but a soundstage for one thing, they just, like I keep saying, it's all arithmetic. They looked at the numbers and said, we don't think any big movies are coming here anymore. And 3.5 years ago, when they took out one of the prime incentives in the incentive program, and I hate being right all the time, but I predicted that if they took out that incentive, that the movies would stop coming.
What incentive was that?
Well, there's a thing in a budget in a major any motion picture, and it's called above the line, and that's all the actors, the directors, producers, and writers. Now, this constitutes usually around 50% of a budget. So if you take that from 30% to 5% incentive, which they did, well, we were no longer attractive to big productions. It had no effect on the reality shows because, let's face it, they spend so little money here that it's probable that they will shoot up here whether there's an incentive or not because their profit margin is so huge.
Yeah. Well, now there's a movie coming up they're going to shoot in Whittier, correct?
Yeah, Hunter Killer.
No, that even with the watered down incentive though, they're still coming.
They're still coming, yeah, and I think that's due to the diligence of the folks over at Sprocket Heads. They've been working on this for a good couple of years, real hard, and I think a lot of it is the fact that Whittier specifically can double for a Russian subport.
Yeah, definitely. Such an exotic place. It's so cool. I love Whittier.
Yeah, so I mean, as much as you'd like to shoot, in Hawaii and go surfing after work,
yeah,
it just wouldn't fit.
Yeah. So it's the uniqueness of the location that's drawing that film here, not any kind of incentives.
Well, I don't know. I think the incentives help too.
Yeah.
Because they plan, they will hire a lot of Alaskans, from what I understand. I'm not as close to this project as I worked to a couple other ones, but
right. Well, let me ask you. We're talking to Ron Holstrom, who works in the movie industry. He's an actor. You were in the movie. Was it Frozen Ground? Was that the name of it?
Yeah, the Frozen Ground.
Did we ever get to see the numbers on what that meant to our economy? How much money that movie being shot in Alaska produced in real money to our economy as far as wages?
Boy, there's a question I can't answer.
Yeah.
I
would you call it significant?
Oh, I would say so.
Yeah.
Because I know when I went in for my first day of costume fittings and stuff over at the Cook, I mean, they had floors rented in that place, So, I know all the rental car places and different restaurants and stuff. I know they were all thriving. So, yeah, I can't imagine that it didn't just pump a lot of money into the community.
I saw Julie Haskett, who was in the Whale movie, as she was in Frozen Ground too, wasn't she?
Yeah, she actually, in fact, Cage said to her, "Thank you, Sheila." So I think that was a tip of the hat to Sheila Balistreri.
Oh, that's because she covered that case. Sure. That's right. Now, I saw Julie put up on her Facebook the other day that she got a check, like a what do you call it, a residual or royalty, but she didn't show the amount. Well, now, what do you think she would have gotten for? I know you would have gotten a lot more because you had a big part, but typically, if someone's like a Julie Haskett or someone just has one line in the movie, what do they make for that typically?
Well, it's once again with the way our contract is, it's kind of like what George H.W. Bush described as voodoo economics.
Yeah,
because it kind of tapers down over the years. But I know some of us that had bigger roles in the film, have gotten a couple of grand in residuals so far.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but on the other hand, a few weeks ago, I got a check from MGM, and I was real excited. I opened the envelope. It was from some biker film that I did in the '80s, and it was like a check for $2.77. So,
I got a check once from Dick Clark for $100 because I lost it on air once on Channel 2. I just kept laughing and laughing. I couldn't stop. And they picked up that clip and they sent me a release form and they used it on national TV. That's my claim to fame.
Yeah. Much to your embarrassment, but heck, it was $100.
That's right. That's right. So what's going to happen? Are you going to go down there and testify? Are you going to try to? How's this all going to play out on the Film and Center program?
Well, I'll at least testify via teleconference, but I may go to Juneau. I've got Irene Bedard's coming up here again this next week. She's going to do a play reading of some native plays, and it's always fun to have Irene in the state.
She's beautiful.
Oh, she's wonderful. She's so talented. I get such a kick out of her. I heard a rumor. I'm sorry, Irene, if you're listening, and this is unconfirmed, but I heard she's going to be in the next Will Smith movie as a co-starring.
Oh man, she's a gorgeous woman.
She is. She's such a great actress.
What are you still involved in plays locally?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, well, I haven't really been on the boards in a while, but yeah, I was going to audition this weekend for this really funny show that Professor Tom Score's putting on up at UAA. I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's about the opening of the Globe Theater with Will Shakespeare and Bacon and Richard Burbage and even the Queen's in it. But it's about the little-known zombie outbreak in London at that time.
Now you still doing a regular segment for the ABC Fox station?
Yeah, I am. I do that every Thursday night at 9.
And what do you call that again?
It's called Your Entertainment Link.
You enjoy doing that?
Oh, I'm having a ball, Ken.
That's awesome.
It's like people say, yeah, you're a news guy now, and I tell them, no, I just act like a news guy.
You play one on TV.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Ron,
it's
always good talking to you, and I appreciate you giving us some of your time. Keep me posted on this incentive thing, and let me know how it plays out if you don't mind.
I certainly will, Dan. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has. It's good to hear your voice, and I appreciate you calling in.
Thanks for having me on, Dan.
Absolutely. That's Ron Holstrom. He played the defense attorney for Robert Hansen in Frozen Ground, and he's very active in the community here as far as the Dan Fagan Show. Good morning to you. 7:35 in the morning. It's the 9th of February. Currently, temperatures around the area 9 degrees in Anchorage, 7 Wasilla, 1 Palmer, Eagle River 7, 12. It's snowing in Girdwood, 12 degrees in Girdwood. You know, on this film incentive program, it's one of the things that angers me about it is that a guy like Johnny Ellis or Bill Wilikowski or the typical left winger cannot for the life of them say, yes, let's have a competitive investment climate for the oil industry. But yet when it comes to the film industry, oh, yes, by all means, let's have a competitive investment environment for the film industry. And it's amazing that they apply different standards for Hollywood than they do big oil. So they understand that taxes deter investment. They understand healthy investment climates bring jobs. They get that. But yet they don't apply it to the oil industry. Of course, we're going to have more movies made here if we have an investment climate that is competitive. And that's a good thing, according to Bill Wilikowski and Hollis French and all these guys. But yet when it applies to big oil, let's tax them to oblivion. It won't, they've got to be here. Look at how much money they're making already. They're going to come anyway. It's such a glaring double standard. And in my opinion now, I cannot report to you this as though I know it. I can give you my opinion on it. I think it reveals a real anti-oil bias. It's almost as though they don't want more tax dollars coming to our state via the oil industry. Or not more tax dollars, excuse me. More oil industry jobs coming to our state via the oil industry. I don't know how else to explain it because they've been caught red-handed, understanding that the climate you create for investors is key when it comes to Hollywood. They get that. But yet they'll be the first to argue for ACEs. Now, to me, that is evidence that these guys honestly don't want more oil industry jobs here. I don't know how else you can look at that, folks. Now, I understand I can't look into the heart of Bill Wilikowski or Johnny Ellis or Hollis French's heart. I can't say what their motive truly is. But I can look at their actions. And when you show me by your actions that I want to have a better investment climate for Hollywood so they'll make more movies here, okay, boom, you get the concept. But you don't apply the same concept to the oil industry. It makes me think, well, what's that all about? And I'll tell you another thing. Now, this is strong, and this is gut wrenching to hear. But I personally believe I cannot report this to you as though I know it. This is my belief. But I believe there's a lot of evidence to back up my belief. And it is this, that the big environment movement that is such a big supporter of the Democratic Party, including Democrats here in Alaska, their number one goal when it comes to North America is prematurely shutting down the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. Clearly, big environment's biggest defeat in the half century it's been predominant in this continent was the breaking ground to build the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. That's their biggest defeat. And they know if they can prematurely shut down that Trans-Alaska Pipeline, it will take AMOR off the table forever. It'll kill offshore drilling in Chukchi and Beaufort. It'll kill further development in the NPRA. And it would be a major coup to be able to shut that pipeline down prematurely. You will remember under ACES, the acceleration of the reduction of volume in the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. All right, I'm sending you a clip. That's the Ron interview. We'll play that sometime in the 8 o'clock hour. If you like get 569. I don't know. I don't the reporter, but not cutting yet. Public radio program could suffer under Milwaukee. Food safety inspectors would visit. I just don't. He killed himself. It was a sad story, but I think these food inspectors. Seriously? You really believe that? He couldn't believe that I believed that, but I did believe. I do believe that. Look, if so, I don't get it. I don't get it. Food safety inspectors would visit fewer restaurants, leading to more illnesses, he writes. So much the government does is just useless. Nat writes there just a few of the impacts of the cuts that Mr. Walker's proposed. On Thursday, he unveiled hundreds of pages of budget documents that for the first time showed how he'd achieve some 280 million in cuts to state agency spending as his administration confronts a $3.5 billion budget shortfall. And we're going to cut 3.5 million within our means. Lawmakers here who but a review of documents submitted by a handful of Walker's departments shows that the cuts will impact the lives of people across the state. Really? 280 million? I don't know. That doesn't seem like much. Of course, I'm a believer that so much of government is inefficient and wasteful. So when you're spending multiple billions, what are we spending? 7 billion this year, 8 billion? And you're going to cut 280 million? I don't think you started. Fewer inspections, more illnesses. The cuts to state food safety program are one example, he writes. In an effort to save about 800,000, the Department of Environmental Conservation proposes cutting 8 positions from its Food Safety and Sanitation Division, which it bluntly warns in budget documents will result in an increase in the number of individual complaints of illnesses from food. Now, you have to understand, the people who run the Department of Environmental Conservation, they want more money. They don't want less. So they're going to paint this doom and gloom picture to convince the politicians that if you cut us, all hell will break loose. If you take away some of our money and power, the world will end. This is the bureaucracy that exists today that is so destructive in government. Here's what Elaine Floyd, DEC Environmental Health Director, said. The reduction would reduce its inspections of permitted retail establishments by half, from 40% annually to 20%, though it aims to maintain a focus on food processors, which handle more products and present a greater risk to the public. So the plate you two communication systems cut. State's Department of Administration will save about 1.5 million from cuts to a pair of communication systems. The department's proposed budget would remove 830,000 in grants in public radio and television, with the bulk of the cuts going to about 30 radio stations. Good. Steve Limbeck, president of Alaska Public Radio Network, said the reduction amounts to a 18% overall hit to public radio and television. State money makes up only 8 to 9% of the budget of Alaska Public Media, which includes Anchorage's public radio and television stations, but other stations rely more heavily on grants, he said. It'll have a different kind of impact at different stations around the state. But added 18% is a pretty substantial hit and will affect Nobody ever watched that. This special report I saw last night on this fought for wilderness designation in Anwar and how heroic they were and courageous. Well, you put something like that on a television station that has to make money, there's no way people are going to watch that nonsense. I never have understood public radio and public television. If you can't make it in the free market, go do something else. If you can't make enough money by putting on a product that enough people will support, then it's not for you. Go somewhere else, go do something else. It's not what you're meant to do because the market has rejected it. Or get better. $569-1080. 569-1080. That's the number. You can reach us at Dan Fagan Show at iCloud.com. Dan Fagan Show at iCloud.com. Here's what Steve. What is Kipuni? Kipuni? I just got this text from Mike Robbins. Said, "Good morning, Dan. I would suggest that you not continue to mention the Kipuni call letter. We already have a problem with people associating you with gifts you need, and there's no benefit to us for you to mention these call letters. If you want to reference my other radio show for having interviewed the people on the radio before or something other than my whole show on KF, you need." Maybe he said KFQD, including KFQD. I did send my old show on KFQD. I don't know what any of that means. We already have a problem with people associating you with gifts you need, and there's no benefit to us for you to mention those call letters. I want to reference my other radio show for having interviewed the people on the radio before or something other than my whole show on KFUD. That's KFUD. KFUD. Well, no, he can't censor what I talk about. You should know that. So I just sent him. I don't know what any of that means, and he just sent LOL. Oh, and then he said Siri sucks. Sorry. referencing KFQD was my point. I mean, I did a show over KFQD for years. Of course, I'm going to remember. Yeah. Okay. Oh, see now I'm interpreting it what I think you wanted to write. We already have a problem with people associating you with them, not gifts you need. That's KFQD. We already have people associating you with gifts you need or KFQD. And there's no benefit to us for you to mention those call letters. Yeah. If you want to reference my other radio show for having interviewed the people on the radio before for something other than my whole show on KFQD instead of KFQD. Well, that it does because KFQD is what he's trying to say. This is my main thing with Robin. If you give him an inch, he will take 100 miles. So I never give in to anything he requests. Because it's like that one time he was on the show. I want to come in. I mean, I fought him on. I said, all right, come in. But he's definitely a control freak. Huh? Yeah. Oh, just now? Doing what? Yeah. Yeah. How's Jeremy doing? Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, it's so hard to compete with Clear Channel with Forest. So Barney's doing the show now. You know. Yeah. Oh, how'd she do? Yeah, she's got a good person. You have guests? Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a beautiful morning here in Alaska. Pristine. Glad you're here. Dan Fagan Show, broadcasting KOAN, KVNT. It was called Dan Fagan Show at iCloud.com. Dan Fagan Show at iCloud.com. I heard something over the weekend that really stuck with me. So much of life is how you look at it, right? Your perspective. And if you look at life like it's a gift, it's a privilege, you don't deserve it. It's just something that's been handed to you. You're going to be a very different person than someone who looks at life as though they're entitled to something. They deserve this, and there's a line in I think probably one of my top 5 favorite movies, Unforgiven, with Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman's laying down on the ground in the bar after Clint Eastwood walks in and says, "Any man don't want to get killed, best walk out the back." So he shoots Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman's sitting down there, and he goes, "I don't deserve this." Well, we all deserve. I know for me personally, the mistakes I've made in my life, I don't deserve anything good happening. I don't. Now, I believe good things will happen, but it's not that I deserve it and that I'm entitled to it. Because life's a gift. The fact that my heart is beating right now, I can't. Now, if you want something, you can go and try to get it and work hard and make the right choices. But there's no guarantee things are going to work out the way you want. And to operate under that mentality is just a horrible way to live life. And what I heard this weekend, it was a guy talking to me. He's a break. That entitlement mentality versus the idea of walking in gratitude and realizing that life is a gift, realizing what you have, how precious and marvelous it is. I don't think a Democrat would ever get elected if the entitlement culture went away in America. I honestly don't. Because that's really what they promote. The man is keeping you down. You deserve a job. No, you don't deserve a job. You deserve this. You deserve that. No, not really. You can go and try to get a job and work to put yourself in a position to make yourself valuable to your employer. And that's going to help you financially. If every American began to operate under this premise, okay, I got a job now. I've been hired. I'm going to do everything in my power to make myself as valuable to the person who hired me as I can. That would revolutionize our country. If that's if that's your goal, to make yourself valuable to your employee, you're going to be successful. Employer, I should say. If you're an entrepreneur, if your goal is to create value for your customers, meet the needs of the customers, you're going to be successful. If you go at your job as though you're entitled to, well, I expect to have this time off, and I don't do that kind of work, and I'm not going to do this kind of work. And you go in there with an entitlement mentality. Or here's the thing that just kills me. My dad was the same way. I get this from him. When I go into a restaurant and I want to substitute, and the restaurant says no, that we don't substitute. As though it's a privilege for me to be in your restaurant. You're going to do by creating value from attitude. And especially with young people. I've had so many entrepreneurs tell me, man, I get kids out of college or high school. They demand this, they demand that. They're not going to do this, they're not going to do that. That's an entitlement mentality. And the ones who are going to do well in our culture today are going to be the ones who are going to get in there with a heart of gratitude. Realize it's a privilege to have a job, that you're not owed a job by anyone. You have to earn the money that your boss is going to pay you. And that's going to be your attitude. And you're going to be a very successful person. With that attitude, every day you wake up, I'm going to create value for my employer. I'm going to create value for my customers. I'm going to give it my all. Success is yours. It's just that simple. 569-1080, 569-1080. That's the number. Email me, shoot me an email if you got an email machine. Dan Fagan Show at iCloud.com. Okay. Will it fit? Okay. 1628. I won't talk long before. I'll get right to it right away. Oh, 16 minutes? 12 minutes. 28. How long until, can you get to it real quick or is it going to be a while? Okay. All right, 8:16 here on a Monday morning, 7 degrees in Anchorage, going to get up to 16 with a slight chance of snow later this afternoon. Let's welcome to the broadcast Ron Holstrom, who is known by a lot of folks in Anchorage as the theater guy. He's very active in the movie industry here in Alaska, and he played quite 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 well. He played the defense attorney in the movie about serial killer Ron Hansen. It was fun. Well, I don't think I've talked to you since I've seen that movie. I was very impressed.
Oh, thanks, Dan. Yeah, well, we should point out that I'm kind of a lousy attorney.
The movie program in Louisiana has exploded.
It's incredible. It's like Hollywood used to be, like 30 years ago.
Yeah,
You couldn't make a turn on the street when I lived down there and not find a movie crew.
yeah. So what happens? So Stoltz is basically just saying no money for the incentive program. Is that his deal?
Yeah, and he's been saying that practically since it started.
Yeah. Now, what do you say, Ron, to the notion that look, we got some serious financial crunch times here, losing 50% of our income in 1 year. We can't really be offering subsidies to the movie industry. What would you say to that?
Well, I say that during the campaign, everybody was talking about diversifying the economy, and we should take a look at what happened in New Orleans and what happened in New Mexico, and now Atlanta is starting to boom too, and it's all through. Granted, they're great places to film, but it's also mainly it comes down to arithmetic. If it's cheaper to shoot in your state and you've got beautiful stuff to shoot, they're going to come there. So I think developing that economic stream it just makes sense at this point.
Hollywood's really worried about this too, aren't they?
Yeah. I've been talking to my guild. I sit on the Seattle board of directors of the screen of SAG-AFTRA, and that governs the most of the Pacific Northwest. And they've been on and off the phone with me here for the last couple of. What are you doing, Ron? You moving to Seattle?
Yeah. So
one thing we decidedly lack is a sound stage, because frankly, our weather scares the bejeebers out of Hollywood.
Yeah. I remember those guys. They came by. Jason Moore brought them by on my old show on KFQD. They were all excited. They were going to fund it. Whatever happened to that?
Well, they watered down the incentive, and they just, like I keep saying, it's all arithmetic. They looked at the numbers film group up here. That one thing we decidedly lack is a sound stage, because frankly, our weather scares the bejeebers out of Hollywood.
Yeah.
But a sound stage, for one thing, like we're talking like a 45,000 square foot place.
Yeah.
That generates jobs, and that's open all year long.
Well, I remember those guys. They came by. Jason Moore brought them by on my old show on KFQD. They were all excited. They were going to fund it. Whatever happened to that?
Well, they watered down the incentive, and they just, like I keep saying, it's all arithmetic. They looked at the numbers and said, we don't think any big movies are coming here anymore. And 3.5 years ago, when they took out one of the prime incentives in the incentive program, and I hate being right all the time, but I predicted that if they took out that incentive, that the movies would stop coming.
What incentive was that?
Well, there's a thing in a budget in a major motion any motion picture. You could shoot in Hawaii and go surfing after work.
Yeah,
it just wouldn't fit.
Yeah. So it's the uniqueness of the location that's drawing that film here, not any kind of incentives.
Well, I don't know. I think the incentives help too.
Yeah,
because they plan. They will hire a lot of Alaskans, from what I understand.
To our economy, as far as wages.
Ah, boy, there's a question I can't answer.
Yeah.
I
would you call it significant?
Oh, I would say so. Residual so far.
Wow.
These 7 cents, so
I got a check once from Dick Clark for $100 because I lost it on air once on Channel 2. I just kept laughing and laughing. I couldn't stop. And they picked up that clip and they sent me a release form and they used it on national TV.
Oh,
That's my
cool.
claim to fame.
Yeah, much to your embarrassment, but heck, it was $100.
That's right. That's right. So what's going to happen? Are you going to go down there and testify? Are you going to try to? How's this all going to play out on the film incentive program?
Well, I'll at least testify via teleconference, but I may go to Juneau. I've got Irene Bedard's coming up here again this next week. She's going to do a play reading of some native plays, and it's always fun to have Irene in the state.
She's beautiful.
Oh, she's wonderful. She's so talented. I get such a kick out of her. I heard a rumor. I'm sorry, Irene, if you're listening, and this is unconfirmed, but I heard she's going to be in the next Will Smith movie as a co-starring.
Oh man, she's a gorgeous woman.
She is, and she's such a great actress.
What are you still involved in plays locally?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, well, I haven't really been on the boards in a while, but yeah, I was going to audition this weekend for this really funny show that Professor Tom Score's putting on up at UAA. I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's about the opening of the Globe Theater with Will Shakespeare and Bacon and Richard Burbage and even the Queen's in it. But it's about the little known zombie outbreak in London at that time.
Now you still doing a regular segment for the ABC Fox station?
Yeah, I am. I do that every Thursday night at 9.
And what do you call that again?
It's called Your Entertainment Link.
You enjoy doing that?
Oh, I'm having a ball. And,
That's awesome.
It's like people say, yeah, you're a news guy now, and I tell them, no, I just act like a news guy.
You play one on TV.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, Ron,
it's
always good talking to you, and I appreciate you giving us some of your time. Keep me posted on this incentive thing, and let me know how it plays out if you don't mind.
I certainly will, Dan. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has. It's good to hear your voice, and I appreciate you calling in. It says 12:46. Oh, okay. Oh, I've got yeah, I get 12:46 on both of them. Let's see here. Time. Let's see, what is it? 30, 36, 44. Okay. So not plenty of time, but enough. You want to test my mic, or I guess we can, huh? I'm sorry, say it again. Okay. More movies made here that is forever. Who was honest about it. And we have the clip. I probably should play it. She was she represents Midtown, uh the UMed district. What was her name? Gosh, I can't remember. She's Democrat. And I had to ask her, this was on the TV show. I think I probably asked her 7 or 8 times. Do you think it was a good idea that we built the Trans-Alaska Pipeline? And she eventually answered the question and said, I don't see it that way. So she was honest. It's very rare that the Democrats are honest about what they believe about the oil industry, but she was. So it's my suspicion, and again, I cannot confirm this to you, other than this. What is her name? Gosh dog it, I can't remember her name. It'll come to me. I cannot prove it, other than this one woman who admitted it. But I believe most Democrats who are elected to statewide office, who get significant money from big environment, I believe they'd like to see this pipeline go away and us become a national park. I really believe that. Because they get the healthy environment climate when it comes to the movie industry. But they don't get it, allegedly, when it comes to big oil. I'm sorry. I gotta throw a flag there. I can't prove it. It's all, as they say in courtrooms, conjecture. But
years was a geologist and had his own exploration company. He had invested heavily in Prudhoe Bay, and he had sold all the leases he had right before the strike. And he always said that ANWR was not a good location. And he didn't purchase leases there because that wasn't a good place.
This employer that you worked for, you said your first employer who had his opinions on ANWR, how long ago was that?
This was in 1967.
So what I'm hearing you say is you're making your decisions about drilling now in ANWR based upon one man's opinion 40 years ago without ingesting any new information from your colleagues or what's going on currently?
Well, and thank you. For the past 14 years, I've been in the legislature and been fascinated how the oil companies have been pulling out any money that they had put in on that. And I'm assuming they pulled their money out after having looked at that exhaustively. They have the funding to do the kind of research that the Alaska State Legislature has not spent on
but they can't get
figuring
in
it out. They can do the kind of studies that have been done, and there were plenty of. And I'm fairly sure oil companies are constantly looking at what they can find out.
But it's off
and they've
limits
been
right
pulling.
now.
Well, but they've been pulling their money away from there and putting it into other areas.
Well, they've been pulling their money away from Arctic Power, the lobbying organization, because I would assume because they just don't feel like with the current president there's any hope. But they can't go in there and do any exploratory drilling or any kind of research along those lines. Off limits to drilling.
But they haven't been trying either.
Well, they can't.
They have
It's
lobbyists. They have lobbyists.
Yeah.
And they have not lobbied.
But if you have a president who's dead set against ANWR drilling, why spend money on lobbying it? I don't
know that
my point is, I don't know that
president is.
President Obama? You don't think President Obama is opposed to drilling in ANWR?
No, I had the impression that he was actually maybe of mixed minds on that,
Yeah.
but I didn't have that impression.
I'm trying to get an understanding of why you're opposed to ANWR drilling. If I heard that you said, well, so actually, I guess I am hearing you say that you're not sure we can develop it responsibly. It's not that you don't think anything's there, although you do believe that too. The main reason you're opposed to it is because you don't think we can get in there without hurting the environment. Is that?
It's a wildlife refuge.
Yeah.
It has been pinpointed
Right.
as one of the very valuable areas in another resource.
And you think we could damage it if we went in there and developed
Well,
it?
it's another resource.
Yeah.
Well, do you
And
think
I
we're
think we need
damaging
to-
our North Slope area with the oil development that we have going on? You don't think they would take as much care in ANWR as they do with the current development in the state?
Well, I actually have seen it, just recently flown over it, and there is damage. You can see damage.
In the North Slope?
Oh, yes.
Where's that?
Well, it's all over. It's very fragile. The tundra is very fragile there, and you can see it. And
What kind
and
of damage in
that's-
particular have you
well,
seen?
when they put the pads in, you put a pad over the tundra, it makes permanent marks. You can see that, and that's something that has been remarked on for years and years.
Do you think we should have ever developed Prudhoe or Kapari?
I think it was something that was a resource that was given to us by Congress as one of the things that funds our state government.
Do you think it was a good
That is,
idea
as a matter of fact,
to develop that part of the
I
North
think
Slope?
that's something that happened, and I think that's something you accept.
But do you
and-
think it was a good idea to develop Kaparic and Prudhoe Bay?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, so you think it was a good idea?
Was it a good idea? I think it's one resource. I think there are many other resources. What's
was
not
it a good idea?
It was one of many possibilities.
But was it a good idea?
I guess I wouldn't really look at it that way.
She just couldn't pull that trigger, could she? Oh my goodness. I admire her. She wouldn't bend and say that it was a good idea to build the pipeline. I admire that. It was just she just couldn't bring herself to do it. That's Sharon's sister. Democratic legislator, and I'm telling you, folks, look, it just let's get practical here, okay? Let's keep it real, as the brothers say. Why they loved aces. That's why they present different facts. When we were arguing as a people, should we keep aces? And we need to be aware of that. I cannot prove this, by the way. This is a theory, but I believe most Democrats would agree with Ms. Cisna that we should not open ANWR. By the way, did you hear her excuse? She knew a guy who knew a guy 40 years ago, said it's not a good investment. That's the reason we shouldn't open ANWR. That's her legitimate excuse. Knew a guy who knew a guy. Can you believe it? I admire her transparency. I admire her openness and honesty. I think so much of what the Democratic Party stands for, they can't tell you. When Barack Obama messed up and looked at Joe the plumber, in the eye and said, hey, let's spread the wealth around, he got caught on the campaign trail. Guess what? That's what he's done. That's what Obamacare, that's all Obamacare is a redistribution of wealth. Younger people paying for the health care of older people. Sometimes you get an honest answer out of a Democrat. Most times they're pretty good about hiding it. I remember when Paul Hahnemann ran for mayor, man, you'd have thought he was the most conservative man ever to live. These guys know what they're doing. They understand they do not reflect the worldview of the people in the state in which they live. They get that. And it's tough. I can't imagine being a Democrat running for office, especially statewide office. I thought it was interesting that when Mark Begich ran, he actually didn't run to the right like I thought he would. He tried to present this war on women thing. And clearly it was a miscalculation on his behalf that women who are for abortion rights will get angry and think Dan Sullivan wants to take away their right to end the life of their baby. And that would mobilize them to come out in droves. And it was clearly a miscalculation. And maybe it's because Begich realized when you vote with the president, the most liberal president in the history of this country, 97% of the time, that it's going to be tough for you to run as a conservative. And maybe that's why Begich went with the war on women nonsense. But most Alaska women understand that Dan Sullivan did not want to declare war on them. All I'm saying is let's just be aware of their actions, not their words. That's all I'm saying. If you take gobs of cash from big environment, if you vote for a tax policy that shuts down investment from the oil industry, that's 1 + 1 is 2. I've got to do the math and conclude what the math tells me. And it may not be true for every Democrat. There may be some But again, this back to the original subject here, which is the film incentive program. They understand that a competitive investment climate works for the movie industry. They're all for that. So they get that truth. They get that concept. But then when you apply it to the oil industry, they say, oh, I'm not interested. What does that say? This is not complicated stuff, folks. It's an exciting day here on KOAN. We're the only local station that's going to have 4 local talk shows. Eddie Burks follows me. Joe Miller, his show debuts today at 2 o'clock, 2 to 4. And then the incomparable Glenn Legal Beagle on 4 to 6. That's, what is that, 4, 6, 9 hours of local programming between 6 and 6 here on KOAN. That's amazing. Check out the Joe Miller show today. Debuts, 2 o'clock. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Have a wonderful Monday, folks. Dan Fagan here.